As this is the first meeting after a town election, as our policy states, as the senior ranking member of the school committee, I have the privilege of opening the meeting tonight. So welcome everyone, and welcome to Tim Miller Dempsey as our newest member, and a heartfelt thanks to Libby Lewicki for her serving 3 years on our committee and all of her hard work. So I will call us to order at 6:01 p.m. and declare this meeting is being held remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to an order issued by the Governor of Massachusetts dated March 12th, 2020, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the Town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify me at the start of this meeting in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. So we understand that Mark Landers from Harbor Media is recording this. Is anyone else planning to record? No? Okay, so we will proceed. So our first item of agenda is the election of officers for the new season of the school committee. And the first is the election of chair. And the school committee members self-nominate themselves, and Carrie Nee has stepped up to offer to serve as chair for a second term. And so on that, would someone like to make a motion for?
I move that we vote in favor of Carrie Nee as the chair of the school committee.
I'll second.
Okay, so then we will do a vote by, no, I'm just gonna go and see if I can do alphabetical order on my screen. Jen Benham?
Aye.
Ness Carenti?
Aye.
Oh, I'm looking at the squares on my screen instead of the names. I'm just gonna go by the squares. Tim Dempsey? Carlos De Silva?
Aye.
Michelle Ayers?
Aye.
Carrie Nee?
Aye.
And Liza O'Reilly, I'm an aye as well. So on that note, our new chair, or returning chair, may take over the meeting.
Thank you so much, Liza, and thank you all. So the next item of business 1.2 is the election of vice chair, and Michelle Ayers has nominated herself. So I'll take a motion to vote for Michelle Ayers as vice chair.
I move that we vote in favor of Michelle Ayers for vice chair.
I'll second.
Thank you. And we'll go alphabetical order. Michelle?
Can make me vote for myself first. Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
Carlos?
Aye.
Liza? Oh, sorry. Tim.
Yeah.
Aye. Sorry about that. Liza?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Item 1.3 is the election of secretary, and Ness Carenti has nominated herself. So thank you, Ness. So I'll take a motion to approve Ness as the secretary of the school committee.
I'll make the third motion to approve, to vote in favor of Ness Carenti for secretary of the school committee.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And we'll go Michelle.
Aye.
Jen. Ness.
Aye.
Carlos.
Aye.
Tim.
Aye.
Liza.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay, with that, I will take a motion to enter into executive session. For anyone who's on the line who is listening to the meeting, we are going to be going into executive session now. We will reconvene in public session at 7 p.m. So we hope you will join us then. So would somebody like to make a motion to enter executive session?
I'll make a motion to enter into executive session and to reconvene in open session for the purposes of to discuss entering into a memorandum of agreement with the bus drivers union for a collective bargaining agreement to discuss strategy regarding negotiations with HEA Unit A regarding an MOA for the reopening of schools for the 2020 to 2021 school year, discuss strategy regarding negotiations with the Food Service Workers Association for collective bargaining agreements for the 2021 to 2024 term, and to approve the minutes of the executive session held on May 10th, 2021, the public discussion of which would be detrimental to the committee's bargaining position.
Second.
Thank you. And we will do roll call again. Michelle?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
Carlos?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Liza?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. And Joe Fisher will be joining us in executive session tonight too. So hopefully everyone has the link and we'll see you there. Good evening, everyone. We are reconvening an open session of the school committee.
This meeting is being recorded.
And I'm going to read this statement again, just because we have more people on the line now. This meeting is being held remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to an order issued by the Governor of Massachusetts dated March 12, 2020, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You're hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the Town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. The Town of Hingham is recording this meeting tonight, and I understand that Harbor Media is as well. If anyone else is recording, could you either raise your hand or just unmute yourself if you're a panelist? Okay, seeing no one, I just want to update everyone who's on the line tonight. Earlier tonight, our first order of business was to, we have a new school committee now following the election. So we just want to welcome Tim. We're really happy to have you on the committee. So welcome. Thank you for running and for taking on this role. And I want to thank all of my committee members for your vote of confidence for allowing me to serve for another term as chair. I've been very fortunate to be able to watch and learn from two previous chairs on the school committee. And thank you to M.G.L, who stepped up to serve as vice chair this year, and Ness for stepping up to serve as secretary. So the next item of business we have is an action from executive session. Before we get into that, I wanted to note that I am participating remotely, as are my colleagues M.G.L, Jen Benham, Ness, Carlos De Silva, Tim Dempsey, Liza O'Reilly. And we are also joined by Joe Fisher from the Board of Selectmen to talk about this next item of business, which is to discuss entering into a memorandum of agreement with the Hingham Public Schools Bus and Van Drivers Association and to act as appropriate. Liza, would you like to make a motion?
Yep. So I'll make a motion to ratify the memorandum of agreement with the Hingham Public Schools Bus and Van Drivers Association for a collective bargaining agreement for the 2021 to 2023 school years.
Do we have a second?
Carlos, do you want to second it or do you want me to second it? I'll second.
Okay, thank you, M.G.L. Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. M.G.L,
Aye.
Jen Benham,
Aye.
Ness.
Aye.
Carlos De Silva,
Aye.
Tim Dempsey,
Aye.
Liza O'Reilly,
Aye.
Joe Fisher,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Thank you, everyone. Next is item 4.1, which is to approval of the minutes of the school committee meeting held on May 10th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 10th.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. M.G.L,
Aye.
Jen Benham,
Aye.
Ness.
Aye.
Carlos De Silva,
Aye.
Tim Dempsey,
Abstain.
Liza O'Reilly,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. 4.2 is to the approval of the minutes of the school committee meeting held on May 8th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the May 8th school committee meeting.
Second.
Any discussion?
I believe it's the 18th.
15th, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
All right, May 18th. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none. Michelle,
Aye.
Jen,
Aye.
Ness,
Aye.
Carlos,
Aye.
Tim,
Abstain,
Liza?
just because I wasn't here for them.
Yes.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. And just to say, Joe, you're welcome to stay on and join us, but you don't have to, so don't feel obligated. So we're happy to have you or whatever you feel like doing. Just all right, item number 5 is questions and comments. The Hingham School Committee encourages community engagement and welcomes questions and comments as agenda items are discussed at the meeting. In addition, we have set aside up to 15 minutes at the beginning of the meeting for comments and questions that fall under the purview of the school committee and are not already on tonight's agenda. If any guests wish to speak, please use the raise hand function, state your name and address, and address your comments to the chairperson. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker and must relate to topics within the scope of responsibility of the school committee. As established by the Massachusetts general laws, the responsibilities of the school committee are to 1, select and terminate the superintendent, 2, review and approve budgets for public education in the district, and 3, establish educational goals and policies for the schools in the district. Speakers are encouraged to present their remarks in a respectful manner and to consider the privacy interests of others. The comment period is not a time for debate or response to comments by the school committee. The school committee is not adopting or endorsing any of the comments made during the public comment period. So with all that being said, if anyone in attendance has a question or comment, could you please use the raise hand function? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to item 6, which is the superintendent's report. Dr. Austin?
Thank you very much to the chair, and welcome everyone on a Monday night. Nice to see you all, and welcome Tim Dempsey to the school committee. I'm looking forward to working with you, and congratulations, Carrie, for coming back for another 3-year session, as well as the chair, and welcome Ness into the secretary, and Michelle here into the vice chair. So I look forward to another very productive year with the school committee, and thank you for your service. So tonight, as always, I will start with a COVID-19 update. And then move into some of the update on reopening committee, and then move into the report of reopening, or I'm sorry, report of the end of the year activities that I would ask the elementary and middle school principals to join us with tonight. So we'll start this tonight, and we'll go from the beginning. So as always, the PowerPoints. So we start with tonight, as we can see, the Town of Hingham, the COVID-19 weekly public health data. If you look towards the right of both the top and lower part of the screen, we now see we are in the green, and we have now been for 2 weeks with all the way down to 4.8 cases per 100,000 population over the last 2-week period. So that's very good news. We continue to drop. And then below that is the percent positivity test rate, all the way down to 1.04%, which is the best it's been since we've actually began measuring way back in November. So great news for the Town of Hingham. We're obviously headed in the right direction. I appreciate everyone's vigilance on this, and we're making great progress. So again, as we've done all along, we report our weekly cumulative positive test results. And over the last week, we actually had only 1 case last week. Was one of the lowest weeks we've had since we began measuring. We did have a couple weeks where we had 0, but way back in the fall. So now we had 1 case this last week of a student and no staff. And our quarantine rate, our positive test cases, it's just on the bottom screen of that, are down to very, very small, that 1 this past week. So great news. Over the last 2 weeks, we moved up by 10 students, where we had 9 the week before, and then 1 last week. So again, like the town, we're heading in a great direction, and we want to continue that positive movement for us as we move to the end of school. So great news with that. And finally, the quarantine numbers. Again, it will be nice when we see 0 in quarantine. However, we still have some regulations we have to follow in regards to the quarantine of all. And so at this point, we did have some students, particularly at the middle school, and I think those were related to outside sports events that ended up in quarantine. And I continue to see these things hopefully decrease over the time, even though we only have a few days left of school. Certainly hope to have that quarantine that allows students to come back and finish the year strong and in person. I will say that the in-person, as far as being in school when there's a positive case, quarantine has substantially decreased to almost 0 because the rules and the regulations now say that you have to be within 3 feet in order to be considered for quarantine if a student is positive. And of course, at 3-foot spacing, we have no real reason for that to occur. So on the inside, very good news to keep kids in school. And I'm certainly excited about that. And hopefully we continue this trend. In their testing, again, this last week, we tested 49 staff. And again, 0% of those people had positive tests. And so overall, we've run since January, 2,161 staff tests. With a 99.9% negative test result. So in that time, we've had 3 positives over that entire period. So 0.10% positivity rate, well below the state average, and very much appreciative of all the hard work that people are doing and making testing work. And then with the students, we're having very, very similar results. This week of the 517 to 521, we again ran 90 pools across the district with up to 10 students in each pool. That we ended up with actually 526 tests in that out of those 90 pools, so obviously less than 10 in each pool. But our negativity rate is 98.9%. This last week, we ended up with 1 student who tested positive out of all of the pools, out of the 90 pools we tested, which is a positive pool rate of 1.1%. And we administered 5 Binax Now rapid tests, and then had the 1 student end up being positive. So pool testing has done exactly what we wanted to do. We identify a student who potentially in a pool, test them from a secondary pool, and then, or individually after the pool is identified, and then we identify if a student is positive or not, and that's exactly what we've done with that process. So very excited to have that be very positive for us to identify. Overall, we've run 676 pools since starting back in the end of February for 4,267 individual students participating in that, with a negative pool rate of 99.6%. We've had 3 positive pools overall out of the 676. We've administered 32 Abbott Binax Now rapid tests and 2 positive individual results from all of those pools. So again, doing this job, and I appreciate all those that are participating, and particularly all those who are making it happen within the schools. So thank you. So this is just another look at a graph, the weekly positive case count. Again, now this is the lowest it's been since November 21, with only 1 new case this past week, which is, again, very good news. And you can see the downward trend, particularly from the end of January down to now. Certainly a substantial decrease in cases, and that's incredibly good news. And this is staff. So over the last 5 weeks, we've only had 1 case in 5 weeks with the staff. So again, very good news. This would certainly indicate that those who have chosen to be vaccinated, this seems to be working very well and getting our numbers way down. And it's leading to the negative tests across the board. So great work for everyone. So that was the update on the COVID. Talk a little bit about the reopening committee. I know that people were anxious with that. So the reopening committee had its first meeting on 5/12. We will meet again on next on 5/26. The minutes are posted on our website, as I said they would be. So you'll see the agenda as well as the minutes for those on our website. Since our first meeting, we have received updated guidance regarding physical distancing requirements for 21-22. At this point, DESE has announced that there will be no requirement for physical distancing in 2021-2022. So that's very important for us to plan what our programs will look like next year, and certainly hearing that physical distance will not be part of that at this point is very good news for us. The masks for 21-22 may be required. DESE will provide some additional guidance. I'm sure they're going to watch the numbers over the summer and update us as we move forward. So we are waiting for updated guidance that I think will come later in the summer itself. It's still unknown if there are any specific recommendations for lunch services. I don't anticipate any specific, where we continue 6 feet, masked, et cetera. I don't anticipate that. Again, we are waiting those recommendations that will come later on this summer. And so that makes it a little tricky now to try to figure out exactly what we need and how we're going to reopen. But the commissioner has made it very, very clear to all of us, his intent is to open 2021, as we have done in previous years, very much return to normal. So I anticipate all of those things that have been in the guidance up until now will most likely be gone for the future. The reopening committee has discussed the potential need for Foster North prior to the updated guidance about physical distancing. So one of the big questions about Foster North is obvious, do we need it for space? If we have to keep students at 3 feet or greater, certainly space at Foster becomes a issue. And frankly, space at Foster has always been an issue. Space and operations have been an issue for many years. It's a concern, but the main reason why we got Foster North is obviously due to COVID and the restrictions that the DESE and the state has put on this for operating schools. So after additional discussion with the Central Office Administration and Principal Wilcox, we invited into a cabinet meeting. I am not going to recommend that we continue with Foster North for 21-22. I want to recognize that the incredible sacrifice of moving teachers, for students who were displaced out of their home of foster and families, moving across from Foster to Foster North was incredible. And with all of the I know at the time it's almost impossible to try to open a school in the middle of a school year, let alone a year that we had COVID. But I want to congratulate all those who did that, and including Dr. Wilcox and her team over there at Foster, who did just an outstanding job of transitioning to Foster North. By all accounts, it was very successful. I also hear that families are very happy with that move now, and that they were very pleased with what happened and occurred. And so I think there will be some loss that folks perhaps would have liked Foster North perhaps for another year or at least until perhaps we have a new Foster Elementary itself. However, we believe that bringing the Foster community back together in one building is a priority for us, bringing that community back together. We believe that we can safely manage the students in one building without physical distancing requirements from DESE. And to also say the cost associated with the ongoing use of Foster North would be incredibly high and would require, as we all remember, require an additional administrator, nurse, custodian, support staff, et cetera, to be able to run that operation in a time that, frankly, we've been using it for COVID, but it does not appear like we'll need to use it for COVID for another year. We do recognize that Foster itself has had space and operational issues for many years. Because of this, we have discussed of exploring the potential for portable units at Foster for additional space if we need it in the future. And I think that's a better long-term solution if we need, prior to a new building, if we need additional space or overflow space at Foster. And so that is not going to be my recommendation to continue with Foster North for 21-22, and certainly appreciate everyone's support in making that happen during this year, which was difficult, but in the end was very successful. So updated guidance from the governor and DESE. As you all heard last week, we had an emergency meeting that students are no longer required to wear masks when engaged in outside activities. For example, certainly during recess, phys ed, youth sport, or classes outside. While the state is fully reopening on May 29th, all students and staff are still going to be required to wear masks inside of all school buildings. That will continue for the remainder of the school year. DESE will require a full return in the fall for all students. It does not appear that remote learning will be an option for the fall. So again, we are planning for a full reopening as we did in 2019, and hopefully the whole year lasts that way, and that we do not ever have to remove back to remote learning again anytime in the near future. Student lunches will continue to be free in 21-22. Remind people of that, so that was very good news. And DESE will provide additional guidance about the fall in the coming weeks. So as things continue to change, we will get new information as the summer progresses. We'll continue with that. The state of emergency will be lifted on June 15, 2021. The existing MOAs will expire on that date. The school committee will need to review and/or rescind any of the emergency policies that were developed due to the pandemic and the state of emergency. So that should be, we should need to think about that for the next meeting. We did receive updated guidance regarding graduation requirements that include there is not going to be any capacity for outside graduation, which is very good news for people who want to see that and return to a fairly normal graduation. Diplomas can be handed to each recipient now, so that is very good news as well. Masks will not be required outside during graduation. However, we will continue to recommend that anyone not vaccinated to please wear a face mask and practice appropriate physical distancing if possible and feasible. There are no physical distancing requirements, but we strongly encourage everyone to maintain appropriate physical distancing from individuals outside their immediate households if possible, and masks will be available to anyone who wishes to have one during the graduation ceremony. So again, we want to be smart with this. We want to enjoy our new freedoms that we've all longed for a very long time, but at the same time be safe and secure for everyone in attendance. Thank you. I'll do the question and comments before we head over to the elementary and middle school principal on the end of the year activities.
Great, thank you. Does anyone on the committee have any questions for Dr. Austin on the update? Michelle?
Sorry, thanks. Just a quick one. Just if we do decide to go with some portable rooms for foster, do we have an idea on the cost and, more importantly, the availability of them? I know last year they were tough to come by.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've asked Mr. Ferris to take to the facilities committee to review. First of all, we would have to do a repress. I think it's RFS. What you call it here is for proposals for the cost of those. And so we'd really like to run that by the facilities committee and have the board weigh in on, or school committee weigh in on that to see if that's the process we want to use. And so we are going to refer that out to subcommittee and move forward, hopefully. So I don't have an answer for the cost of that yet, but we do need to get going on it. If we're going to make that request, we need to do that very, very soon.
Okay, thank you.
Tim?
Yeah, looking at the mask requirements for schools next year, I know we've had sort of a unilateral approach with this year. Is it on the table to have a different level of masking for elementary versus middle or high school based on the age that kids are eligible for vaccines?
You know, Tim, I would expect that that's probably going to be the case. You know, we know now that we have, in fact, I hadn't mentioned it yet. I'm glad you just said that. The vaccinations are not available for elementary students yet. And we do anticipate, DESE, on our call with DESE, we anticipate that children 3 and up could be eligible as early as August. To begin the vaccination progress. And so while that's good news for those families who wish to participate, it's pretty unlikely that all students will be at the elementary level will be vaccinated before school begins again in the beginning of September. But that's not going to be the case, obviously, with middle school and high school students who are well engaged in that process. Just to add something to that, I forgot to add, and I thank you for bringing that up, because that the vaccine is quite readily available. DESE made it eligible for all districts to apply if we could guarantee or apply for a clinic on site if we could guarantee at least 35 students or individuals who would participate in that process. We did survey both the or all parents of students ages 12 and up and ask if anybody was interested in participating. We got a remarkable response and have over approximately 400 students who are wanting to participate. And so I did make application to the state to have a clinic on site. We have a tentative date for Friday, this coming Friday, for our first vaccination. We would run a clinic early morning at the middle school and then afternoon at the high school after MCAS on Friday. And the reason why we're doing it quickly is so that we're very close to the end of the school year. When we run out of that 3-week period before they can get the second shot would actually occur on the 18th, but we felt it was close enough to the end of school to really push this now and get this as soon as possible. So I would say to the parents out there, be advised, you're probably going to get some information tomorrow or the next day on permission slips and everything that you need to know in order to participate. But I'm excited to bring the service here to the high school and middle school this week and begin the vaccination process. So thanks for that question. And, I think the mask wearing is going to really be depending on the level of vaccination for those ages, Tim.
Great. Liza?
Yeah, going back to the portable units at Foster. So when we put up portable units at the old middle school, turned out that everybody preferred those over the rest of the building. So I'm glad you're making this proposal because I think people will be happy with it once something comes in. But is the thought that they would be freestanding or would they be attached to the building the way that the old middle school rooms were, at the end of a hallway and attached to the building? So, and I guess how many units are you considering?
We've not gotten that far into this discussion yet. To be honest with you, we've just started to broach this. The guidance changed very quickly. And so really wanted to think about long-term solutions for Foster while we potentially build a new school. And really felt that was a better long-term solution than St. Jerome's for us. And so we really need to discuss that and vet that out through hopefully the facilities process and then or facilities subcommittee and then look for perhaps proposals in both regards.
Okay, great. But yeah, just wanted to remind the community that the middle school, it was a big success. So I think everybody should be happy about that as an option.
Great. Anyone else? I just wanted to note that the policies that we enacted, the emergency COVID policies, expire at the end of the state of emergency. So I'm just going to ask everyone on the committee and then also the administration to take a look. If there's something in there that we feel that we need to keep going forward, then we should act on it soon because we'll need to do 2 reads. So, but thank you for that presentation. I see a couple of hands up in the community. So I'm going to recognize Matt Cosman, if you could state your name and address for the record.
Matt Cosman, 12 Summit Drive. 2 quick questions. The first is related to the mask guidance in the fall. So if DESE does not require, Dr. Austin, I feel like you've stated that we want next year, or we expect next year to look like 2019 to 2020. Frankly, I get a little bit concerned when we're talking about, again, put DESE aside. I guess I'm interested in what Hingham's position would be if it's not required, but either recommended or it's an option in terms of tying to vaccination rates. And because again, the elementary school kids certainly are not going to be vaccinated by the time school starts. So I'm just curious if we have a point of view there. And the second question I have is related to the negotiations with the HEA in terms of like recess and things like, there were some things that got lifted with outdoor masks with the recess. And there were some things that weren't able to be lifted that it was noted needed to be negotiated. And I just say, I've heard that even at, within I have 3 kids at Foster, and frankly, everyone's getting a different experience based on which teachers are out there. And it's not, I recognize teachers are trying to do the best they can in terms of managing the situation, but there seems to be very different situations happening at recess. So I think the sooner that, again, recognizing there's only 20 days left or whatever there is. So I'm just curious where we are with those negotiations in terms of sharing supplies and outdoor mask guidance related to recess.
Sure, I'll answer the first question was on an opinion, I guess, on the reopening in the fall and the mask wearing. I think, we'll continue to watch this very closely over the summer. We'll follow the guidance of the science community and the recommendations that's in the best interest of the health and safety of our entire system, and do what's best to ensure that everybody has a safe return and healthy return. And so, I think, again, we'll let the guidance or the science guide us in that regard. And certainly there'll be a lot of discussion as time progresses and we see where we are, and which is very likely to be very different in a couple of months. And so we will certainly see where we are and have continued conversation about what the science is telling us of what the guidance should be. The second part is the negotiations. At this point, there was no question at all that we recognized that the lifting of the masks outside was important. There is, we've left the discretion for teachers on the sharing of instruments. The MOAs called for no sharing, but we agreed that we would, it's really going to be at the discretion of the teachers on what gets shared and used that appropriate. I certainly trust their judgment of how to do that effectively and well. We haven't really made any changes to the outside guidance as far as social distance. And again, it's going to really depend on who's watching who's observing the classrooms, but certainly the intent is to relax that requirement outside. I think we have agreement on those that, again, we'll do the best we can to relax that and make the last 20 days a very good one for our students and staff both.
Great.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Matt, for your questions. Laura Donnelly?
Good evening, everyone. Laura McCord Donnelly, 98 Manatee Road. Dr. Austin, has DESE given any indication for chorus and band for next year and the arts in general?
They're actually still working on those right now. We have not received the updated guidance. We are waiting for a new updated guidance on that. So not yet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Laura. I see, Matt, I see your hand. I'm not sure if you still had something or here.
I did have a quick follow-up, sorry.
Okay.
Just on so it sounds like we should not expect in terms of negotiations with the HEA that there's going to be any changes, and it's just left up to the teachers, which again have very, different philosophies, I think, in terms of where they're coming from. And so I guess I think there was an assumption based on the meeting on Tuesday that the negotiations would take place, but it sounds like at this point we should assume that that's not going to be the case.
So salary negotiations subcommittee is continuing to meet with the MOA as they've done all year. So that will keep going. And you've been at a lot of these meetings, we can't discuss that until we come to a certain point. So that's, I wouldn't make any assumptions about it, but I would also note that once the state of emergency is lifted, then we go back to the original MOA with the unions. Okay, so I don't see any other hands, so we can move on to the end of the year activities at the middle school and the elementary schools.
Thank you, and I'll turn that over to the elementaries and middle school principals. I think that elementary first, I think you have a PowerPoint that you gave Sherry, if I'm correct. So I don't know if it's Mary Eastwood, although you're coming in under Tony Keaty, so I don't know who's who, but whoever has it, that's fine. Sherry, do you have that for them?
Yep, I just need 1 second and I will get that up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. There we go. All set.
Mary, are you presenting tonight, or who's presenting?
Yeah. Oh, no, everybody's going to present. So if you want, I'll start. And everybody's been hard at work trying to get things to be probably in the best place, the Goldilocks position, you know. It can't be exactly like 2019, but we are certainly doing a lot better than 2020. And it's kind of exciting because most people were expecting nothing. And so when you see all these slides, you'll see that there's a lot happening to commemorate the year. And there are several that are across all the elementary schools. And that would be some Memorial Day ceremonies done in different ways. Some schools do them by classroom, some schools do them by the school. And then, of course, the fifth grade has a moving up ceremony that's called different names, but it's really the same thing. And we do different ways of transitioning to the other grades. Either teachers come to visit or whatever, but of course, we're doing everything in a safe way inside the building. And I already mentioned the fifth grade ceremony. So I think E-School is next. So why don't you take it away, Tony?
Okay. Yeah, one of the things I listed here is tomorrow. Oh, we should really start by thanking our PTOs for doing a phenomenal job in trying to provide as many enrichment activities and support as possible throughout the year. And it's been a challenging year, but they have really stepped up and done an amazing job. Tomorrow, PTOs have organized a replacement for what we usually do during the year, which is Nona's Night. It's a night where staff will go to Nona's Ice Cream, they scoop, and the kids come. So we'd replace that. We're going to do like a make your own Sunday pickup tomorrow at East School, all organized by our PTO. Last week, we had a great fourth grade physics Olympics, which is an annual event. This year, we were able to do it outside, and a lot of great parent and family volunteers came to help put that on. A big tradition at East School is our annual field day. So we really can't do it the way that we normally do it, which is a full day event from start to finish. So what we're going to do this year is we're going to have each grade level have their own chunk of a field day. For a couple of hours, there'll be 4 or 5 different activities, all organized by the PTO. So each grade level will have their own. Our fifth grade culmination ceremony also is going to be a little bit different. Instead of having the entire fifth grade together, we're going to do it sort of in a staggered format with one class at a time. And so that will be happening in a few weeks. And then our student council organized a fundraiser this year for Maddie's Promise, in honor of Maddie McCoy, one of our Hingham students, to raise money for pediatric cancer research. So that fundraiser is happening this week. And then we always end our last day with students at East School by a whole school clap out for the entire students. So we're looking forward to being able to go back to that. We didn't really do it the way we normally did it last year because of the way it ended, but it's going to be exciting for that last day of school. So that's kind of our end of the year summary at East School. So.
I would like to also echo what Mr. Keaty had said about the PTO. Our PTO has been phenomenal all year long and just so supportive. So I want to thank the Foster School PTO as well. And we are excited to enjoy the end of the year and enjoy the end of the year on a healthy note. And so we have some activities. The Invention Convention will be held outside for grade 4, and we are excited about that. We also have our Battle of the Books being held, grade 4 and 5. And our grade 5 kickball game will look a little differently. It will be held during the school day this year, and our 5th graders will all be participating as part of the kickball game. We also have new to Foster this year is the Student Council, and our Student Council will be conducting a cleanup day of the Foster School campus, and that will be happening at the end of the week. We will also have a Spirit Day as well, and we also have an end of the year clap out. Our PTO has also organized a virtual talent show that we are excited about, and we are looking forward to celebrating our Math Olympics participants, and we'll be doing that over the announcements for the last week of school and be providing our Math Olympics participants some medals as well. So we are extremely excited about finishing the end of the year, which it seems like it's coming up so quickly. So, and next is Plymouth River School and Mrs. Smith.
Okay, at Plymouth River School, we also are extremely thankful for our PTO, in particular our co-presidents Kelly Jones and Renee Besser, who have been just outstanding working with the subcommittees and bringing all of these fun events to our children. We have the Armstrong Brothers, which is a live band, and it's a fun sing-along, COVID safe. We also have our grade 4 Physics Olympics that's happening next week. Grade 2, they always put on a stone soup play, and we're looking forward to that. We thought that it would have to be virtual, but just recently with some of the changes in guidelines, we're able to have that in person outside. We have some fun Spirit Days coming up, including PRS gear, Disney Day, Tie-Dye Day, and the kids are really looking forward to that. As one of the other schools mentioned, Field Day is always a big event. And we typically have one day dedicated to Field Day, but this year we're breaking it up by grade level, and the kids are just as excited. And we also have Morning Book Club that is spearheaded by our librarian, Mrs. Blake, and supported by many staff members. So 4th and 5th graders will have all read the same book, and they come in the morning to discuss it. And towards the end of the school year, we have our annual volunteer reception, which we know that parents were not allowed in the buildings, but we clearly felt their presence all along this whole school year. So we're continuing with our volunteer reception to recognize and celebrate all of the wonderful volunteers that worked hard behind the scenes. Thank you. And South School, Mary Eastwood.
Thank you, everybody. And Tony, I'm glad you brought all of that up about thanking the PTO. Absolutely, we couldn't have done all this time, and I know we would all agree on this, without our parents in our villages. So it's been very, very important, our families and our staff. And we're very grateful at South School for many cultural presentations that we had this year as well. And one thing that I don't have on here is the leadership team cleanup that just happened recently. And we're also celebrating Math Olympics. And if you'll just take a look, the kindergarten is taking a virtual trip to the zoo, and they're busy working on their memory books, which become a keepsake for life. The first grade musical, the second half of it, is going to be recorded tomorrow. We're grateful to Hingham Cable for that. And so therefore the actual presentation is live, but we're recording it. So all the children in the building will be able to watch it together someday in the future when Hingham Cable finishes it, and it'll be a keepsake, which is great. Second grade had a virtual poet visit, and they put together poetry books for that, and they're planning a camping and a craft day. In third grade, they're also planning a craft day and a scavenger hunt. Fourth grade is planning a kickball tournament, so everybody's going to have a wonderful end of the year. And fifth grade, of course, has some very special events because it's their last year. Some virtual field trips, and of course they're going to have farewell ceremonies, a memory book, they receive a t-shirt, we also do a clap out, and we have several whole school things that a lot of the other schools are doing as well. We have a talent show, and I'm grateful to PTO volunteers and Mrs. Jacobs and Mr. Bazinski, who always help with that. We're going to have Power Hour on the field, which is similar to what's been discussed, a mini field day, so we keep everybody safe, but it's also still very exciting. We mentioned the first grade musical and Memorial Day ceremonies, which we're planning for this week, but I did see the forecast tonight, so we may have to scramble with that, but we've gotten used to scrambling, definitely. We scramble anyway, but definitely during COVID, so we may have to make some changes to that, but we're planning on having that. And the grade levels will also have transition activities so that they get to know the teachers at the next grade level in some way, shape, or form. So it depends on the grade level, what they're doing there. So there's all kinds of different things. And ultimately, I'm so thrilled to be working with this team of principals. It's been an amazing 16 months in that way. I've felt very fortunate and very supported by the school committee. I know we all have, and administration, and also each other. And I want to say one final thing. There's lots of happy kids all across town, and I think that's what it's all about. They're happy and they're safe. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you to the principals. And before, Carrie, you go off and question, I just want to thank you for putting that together. Your perseverance and your dedication this year have been outstanding. It has been a difficult 15 months, 16 months. We have 15 school days left and kids are happy. And I very much appreciate all that you do. So thank you.
Yeah, I would echo that too. Thank you to all of you and to the staff, and thank you for acknowledging the PTOs. They've done a ton of work this year too, and it's thanks to everyone's work. They'll have a somewhat normal end of the school year, which I mean I think everyone will appreciate more than ever. So that's a good thing. Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Are we discussing the middle school end of year activity?
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
Next. Yep.
Okay, great. Oh, there you are.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here tonight. And I want to echo the same sentiments as all my elementary colleagues. The PTO have been tremendous in their support. And because of that, we're able to, as you said, Carrie, get back to some sense of normalcy for the end of the year for our students. One of my favorite days of the year is this Friday. It's our 5th grade move up day, and we get to welcome our future 5th graders. We really missed that last year, and so we're really thrilled to get back to that tradition and bring our future middle schoolers to the middle school. They get to tour the building, meet some teachers, have a delicious middle school lunch, and just feel a little bit more comfortable at their future school. Beyond that, we had scheduled for this coming Friday a 7th grade Olympics, but we have to change and adjust that because of some things that have popped up recently. So they're going to have a 7th grade Spirit Day for their teams this Friday, and we're going to look to re-implement the 7th grade Olympics in the future before the end of the school year. And that's a combination of field day activities, but also academic trivia competitions and just spirit activities for our 7th graders. 6th grade will be planning activities for the final half day of school, the final early release day of school, where we get the kids outside and they are celebrating their teams and their accomplishments for the year. Teachers recognize student achievements. They recognize student progress and improvement. A wonderful way to wrap up the year on the last day of school. And our 8th graders, before we say goodbye to them, will enjoy a field day and picnic lunch. Right now it's scheduled for June 11th, weather permitting. We're trying to keep as many things outdoors as possible so that we can really maximize the social distancing. So, student recognition for citizenship for our 8th graders. And in addition to that, we'll have some fun activities for the kids in the form of field day events for that afternoon. And that's pretty much the end of the year for the middle school.
Great. Well, thank you as well, and your staff and your PTOs, and just for doing that. And again, I mean, I think it's going to be a very good end of the year. So we appreciate everyone's work. So next we have item 7.1 is student communications. I don't see Carly on the line. I don't think she's with us tonight. 7.2 is communications received by the superintendent. Dr. Austin, do you have any for us?
I don't. Sorry, I think Carrie.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Carly's here, maybe under her dad's.
Okay. Okay. Great. Oh, yeah. Could we?
Or maybe it's her dad here. I don't know.
Hi everyone. Sorry about that.
Oh, sorry, Carly.
So the past few weeks at Hingham High School have definitely been the best that we've had over the past year. As each week more and more events have been able to take place, and a normal spring season has begun. At the beginning of May, the Drama Club performed their first in-person production of The Squirrel Girl Goes to College in the auditorium. The virtual Credit for Life Fair was held for all seniors to learn about finances and budgeting before they embark on their college journeys. The seniors also finished their handprint mural, which is an event that happens every year where the seniors leave their handprint on a staircase wall in the high school. So now the seniors have officially left their mark on Hingham High. The senior car parade also took place last Saturday, and all the seniors decorated their cars and drove down Main Street. And it was awesome because it was one of the first events we've had all together as a class since the beginning of junior year. So it was super fun. This past week, the Student Council planned their final Spirit Week of the year, where each day was a different theme. And with the majority of the students back in the building, the participation was remarkable. Over the weekend, the boys tennis team commemorated over 200 Hingham veterans by decorating their graves. And the anticipation is building within our senior class as AP exams are coming to a close over the next few days, and our final day of school is this coming Thursday. So we're looking forward to our senior award night on June 1st, our special senior night on the turf July 3rd, June 3rd, graduation on the 5th, and the long-awaited senior prom on the 8th. And all of these events will be held in person, so our class could not be more excited, and we're very grateful for everyone who helped organize the events. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carly. And I'm again glad that we're able to make some events happen at the end of the year for the especially for the senior class, as you're all leaving us. And speaking of leaving us, this is your last meeting as a student representative for the school committee. So we just really want to thank you for your dedication during this most unusual year.
Of course. Thank you so much.
I think you're our only student rep who did the entire year on Zoom. So that's
Thank you. It was a great experience. I loved it.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, and best of luck next year. We look forward to seeing you at graduation. So, okay, thank you. And then, so 7.3 is other communications. Does anyone have? Okay, not seeing any. We don't have any unfinished business, so we're on to the new business. I'd like to propose moving items 9.7 and 9.8 to the top of this so we can be respectful of our principal's time. Does anyone on the committee have an issue with that? Okay, seeing none, we can do the PRS school council report.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm just going to share my presentation. Okay. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me. I'm here to talk about the school year goals with the school council for the school year 2020-2021. I first just want to start by welcoming Tim Dempsey. Congratulations. And also to Carrie Nee on your appointment for a new term. And I want to thank Libby Lewicki. I know she's not on the school committee anymore, but I do want to thank her publicly for all of her help with working with the CPC to get the funding for our poured-in-place rubber surface. It certainly helps with the accessibility and puts us in ADA compliance. So thank you very much, Libby, if she's listening tonight. Our mission statement is the following. The mission of the Plymouth River school community, where children are treasured, is to foster a love of learning in an innovative, cooperative climate which empowers all students to be competent, productive, caring, and responsible citizens. When we're putting together our school improvement plan, as you know, we have representation from many stakeholders. So included on our members here, we have teachers and parents, and we had someone from the community, Joan Silva, who was wonderful. And I also want to thank Carlos, who was not technically on the committee, but he attended all of our meetings and was very supportive throughout this school year. Our theme for the year was We're All in This Together, and we thought of this theme before we started this crazy school year, and we didn't really know what was in store for us, but we did develop 4 goals and stuck to our goals, and I'll report on those. So, of course, we had an academics goal. Commit to high quality instruction that cultivates each student's academic skill set, talents, and potential to obtain equity, excellence, and inclusiveness in education. Some of the action steps for this goal: we supported teaching staff in the instructional shift. As you know, it was quite a shift from in-person learning to remote learning to hybrid learning, and we had to support all teaching staff with that. We created technology-rich classrooms where students had access to resources to support the learning process. And really our teachers grew in this way too, by supporting different learning styles and just allowed students to share what they know in just different ways. We utilized our support staff. This was one action step that I was really proud of in particular because we were able to support the students who were home. We called it the off cohorts. And we really were able to maximize learning during remote instruction. So we took some of our specialists and our paraeducators and had them working with students who are home and not able to be in the classroom at that time. We also used that same staff to provide opportunities for synchronous instruction so that the teachers could focus on the in-person students and both cohorts could be brought together, and there was somebody on Zoom with them so that they were all together, but they each had a teacher monitoring them and answering questions for them. So that really worked out well. In particular, for math, we supported the hybrid learning model by teaching the off cohort, as I said, in grades 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we're able to really increase the synchronous learning in those grades. We targeted student learning through small group and intervention. And so what we did was we had in-class support and we also had some pull-out support. New this year, we had Title I funding, which was great. So we focused on math and focused on grades 3 and 4 and used our math tutors to create small groups for students who had at-risk, and 2 times a week they were supported by the math tutors. And we were able to report their progress to families so that they could support us and support the students as well. And we're able to continue our Math Plus program, which is our gifted and talented program in grade 5 with a math specialist that we borrowed from another school. In literacy, we created remote intervention and a return to school intervention just because of the instructional shifts that were happening. So students who were not able to make benchmarks on the district reading assessments due to the pandemic, we targeted student learning through small group intervention. And we first started off with the remote intervention in grades 1 and 2 and K 3 and 4 as well, remotely a couple times a week. And once we got back to in-person, we were able to increase that small group intervention to 5 times a week in person in small group. We also provided print materials for students to take home, and the feedback that we got from that was very positive. Students, especially younger readers, certainly benefited from having the printed material at home. One thing, there were many positives, but one thing, we really were pushed out of our comfort zone. So this is a photo just taken last week of a first grade teacher with her class out in the garden. We were able to welcome Holly Hill back, and the teachers have been out there every single day taking advantage of the hands-on science learning that occurs in the garden. So they were, that day, they were watering the radishes. So they're really excited to harvest those radishes. And over to the right, that photo shows a kindergarten class. They were having a movement break. So we were able to find some creative ways to get some learning in and also movement breaks. Goal number 2, we focused on social emotional development, strengthen and support the social emotional skills of all students, and provide interventions to support social emotional, behavioral, and academic success. Of course, this was a very important goal because we had students and staff coming in who were feeling a little bit nervous. So we set the school-wide focus saying that we're all in this together, and we truly meant that. We had parents who became an engaged partner in supporting the theme, and I feel like I talked to and collaborated more with parents this year than probably any year prior. They really were a supportive and engaged partner with us. We provided students with opportunities for ongoing social emotional skill development in order to prevent some of the behaviors from reoccurring. And of course, we provided a tiered approach. So some of the lessons were conducted whole group, some were small group, and some one-on-one for effectively addressing behaviors. We really tried to keep many traditions in place, as we talked about when we shared the end of the year traditions. And I felt like that really, we have our all school meetings, and that really kept us a full community. So we continued with those on an every week basis. And it was on Zoom, but we were still able to keep the structure of all school meeting and doing the pledge together, having guests, student performances, and it was just really a nice tradition to keep, and it just kept us a full community, which was wonderful. And like I said, we focused on the positives. So here's one project that we have going on right now school-wide. It's called Keep Your Sunny Side Up, that came out of school council. And here's two little girls who are sharing a positive from the pandemic. So they were asked to think of something during the pandemic that was positive, really look for the silver lining, whether it was a new talent or maybe spending time with family members, spending time, a lot of them wrote about a new pet that kept them company during the remote learning. And they've been sharing those with me, which I've shared on all school meeting, and they've been sharing it during morning meetings with their teachers. So I feel like just ending and wrapping up the year on a positive note was really important. Goal number 3, communication, of course, is always important. I feel like this year was even more so. So our goal coming into this year was to strengthen a school culture which embraces a homeschool community collaboration. So as many of you know, communication certainly was increased, but it was coming fast and furious. So what I tried to do was streamline it for families. And, you know, just try to make sure that I was on top of everything for communicating, whether it was safety protocols or if it was a change in hybrid learning or full remote or full in person, I should say, coming back full in person, and what exactly that was going to look like. We established and utilized a new preschool liaison, which was wonderful, just bridging the communication between the preschools and kindergarten. And they've really helped support, there's 2 preschool kindergarten liaisons, and they've really helped support the families who are enrolling right now. We supported the implementation of the new district website, and we adapted individual teacher web pages and blogs. Each classroom created a Google Classroom, and that even extended to specialists, and some of the reading tutors and math tutors also created their Google Classrooms. And we engaged in new partnerships that enhanced and supported the work of the school. Goal number 4, safety, of course, was one of our top priorities, to follow the guidelines established by health officials and Recovery Response Advisory Committee, our RAC, to safely reestablish a school. So in the summer of 2020, I participated in and supported the work of the RRAC and made sure that the school was safe coming back, and talked about all of the protocols. It supported the staff in the implementation of the new guidelines, procedures, protocols. I communicated the guidelines, routines, and procedures with families, but also made sure that the students heard them from me. I actively participated in the COVID response team, which we met weekly every Thursday to talk about the cases and different protocols that we had in place. And it was a great way to brainstorm with my team. And I also hosted school-based day and evening forums similar to the school committee coffee talks. I did sort of a smaller version of that just for PRS to just talk and make sure I was available to answer questions and hear comments and concerns. Speaking of safety, we definitely utilized our outdoor space. So one of our new tents went up a couple months ago, and you can see that on the right. The students are within their hula hoop, staying a few feet apart, and they utilized the benches out near the garden as well. And I feel like the students and the teachers really loved this, and I think this is going to be one of the things that really sticks. Some of the things that we've been doing, we found that it pushed us out of our comfort zone, but some of our better teaching actually came out of it, and it's been really wonderful. And so now looking ahead, we'll obviously be in a recovery state. Goal number 1, we're focusing on academics, but we're going to have a different shift. We're identifying grade level academic weaknesses to see what the COVID-19 pandemic had, the impact it had on the achievement gap. We have lots of new staff members that will be in place due to the budget that just passed. And so I have to look at all of that staffing and see how to best utilize the staff to try to support students. And goal number 2, social emotional, I think it's important that we continue with that. So as we're coming back into some normalcy next year, we still have to develop those skills because students have been apart physically, 6 feet apart, and we've noticed that students have lost some of the skills that they had gained years ago. So something as simple as sharing or not getting into people's personal space. So we feel like we might have to take a little bit of a step back to readjust before going forward. And goal number 3, as a district, we're working on restorative justice. And so I really want to take a deep dive into the practices of restorative justice and have some staff training around that as well. Goal number 4, not just communications, but really connections with the school to home and school out to the community. So it will be sort of a communication goal, but really want to have sort of a connection with that goal as well, to just strengthen our school culture and be back as one. And goal number 5, we've had our vision and mission in place for many years. And I think as times are changing, we need to revisit our current vision and mission and develop a future vision and mission and really have engaging conversations with all stakeholders. And so those are the goals that we have in place for next year. And as always, you can stay up to date with PRS, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, the website. And I do want to mention that I just want to thank all of you, Dr. Austin, Dr. LaBilwa, and all of the school committees, past and present, and all of the families too, that I really felt your support this year, not only through the school improvement goals, of course you support those, but really supported the school in any way that we really needed you. And we've spent a lot of time together this year, and I think it was time well spent. And thank you very much. It was greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for all of your work this year. It was incredible. So, and I wanted to compliment you on the report that's in our packet too, on the school council report. I thought it was really well done and had some very concrete measurable benchmarks with the goals. And I really appreciated that. Also, the preschool liaison, I think that's a fantastic idea. I hope other schools will think about doing that too, because you can feel kind of lost moving from, it's a big transition anyway. And so I think that was a great idea.
Thank you. It's actually, we have 2 who were appointed for all 4 elementary schools.
Oh, so fantastic.
Which has been wonderful.
That's great. And then also you mentioned that there are some new things that are born out of necessity, some teaching things. And I think that's fabulous, because I think we shouldn't just go back to normal. We need to be better than normal. So I really appreciated that. Does anyone on the committee have any questions or comments? Michelle?
Just to echo that, really well done. The report was fantastic and really well done. And it just reminds me, we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, that, it was hard to remember that with all the times we talked about COVID and everything that we were focused on was COVID, that there was actually the regular school day was still happening. And you all did yeoman's work, making sure the day job was getting done, as well as all the other things that were added on top of your plates this year. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, I don't see anything else. If any members of the public have any questions or comments, you can raise your hand. I'm not seeing any. So just thank you again for presenting tonight and everything you've been doing over this year.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your support.
Okay, and so next we have the Foster School Council report.
Thank you. I'm just going to start by sharing my screen as well. Okay, so we have the our foster school improvement plan. And tonight I would also like to echo what Mrs. Smith has said by welcoming Tim to the committee, as well as congratulating Carrie and Michelle and Ness, as well as thanking all the members on the committee for all that you've done to support us, and also thanking Libby as well for all of her support and work over the past few years. At Foster School, for our school improvement plan, we focused on core values. The core values being enjoy the process of learning, constantly striving to meet the potential and become lifelong learners, as well as being responsible and demonstrating respect for self, others, and property, practicing critical thinking skills to solve problems, and having a sense of community both in and out of school, the community connections. Our theme this year, or the past year, was I am a masterpiece for students. And the theme for the upcoming school year is fostering an inclusive community. The school committee, the school council members the past year, we had Allison Costa and Aaron McGrath were our teacher representatives. We had Dr. Ruth Gilbert Whitner, who was our community representative, and Caitlin Riley and Sonia Steele were our parent representatives, and we were joined by Jen Benham from the school committee. So we, in review, I am a masterpiece. Our goals for the past year was to increase individual instruction, integrating disciplines, while utilizing a multimodal and inclusive practices approach to develop critical thinking and creativity. Our second goal was to develop and refine instruction and independent application of social emotional strategies within the academic as well as social settings, to expand and continue to integrate the district computer science initiative into all classrooms, which became something that we certainly focused on with our technology integration, and to utilize the data decision-making process to provide feedback for instructional planning and instruction. We focused on collaboration and communication from school to community through service learning, outreach, as well as in-house programming. For our goals, we had goals that were interconnected, and so I'm going to speak about multiple goals at the same time just because they overlap. And two of those goals that overlap are increasing individualized instruction while integrating disciplines, as well as utilizing data. And so what we had done at Foster School previously to this year was to conduct the data-driven dialogue to identify what our students need. And so as part of data-driven dialogue, our teachers are taking assessments at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, as well as the end of the year. And we work together as teams to identify what students need. And so the picture here is, you can see a team of our teachers working together in a data meeting and looking at student data. This was previous to this year. And so this year we moved our data-driven dialogue meetings electronically. So we used our Google Sheets to conduct the same process, but looking at all students at a grade level and then identifying what students need and which of our staff were able to provide any small group intervention that might be needed, or if there were groups that potentially could use some enrichment. As part of this, we implemented a win block, what I need. And so this is when some of those interventions would take place. We also took a look at our current intervention resources. So what do we have for intervention programs that are research-based, as well as what are some of our needs and what do we need to find more of for our staff to use with our students. One thing that we found useful is the LLI program for an intervention program in reading, and our reading specialist as well as our tutors were able to implement this program, and they did so in person as well as remotely for this year during their intervention times. We also looked at other programs for phonemic awareness and phonics, and we continue to look at programs for math intervention as well, and continue to research these programs. We also implemented technology-based programs across the grade levels, such as Lexia, Reflex Math, but then at individual grade levels, our teachers also looked at what was available that was specific to their grade level and what would work to engage students at the appropriate developmental levels as well. Our second goal was to develop and refine instruction and independent application of social emotional strategies within our academic and social settings. So we did have the Toolbox program in place, and we spent a year implementing the Toolbox program, and then we wanted to really take a look at the Toolbox program and ensure that not only did we teach some of the strategies, but we were working on how do we have students work to apply those strategies independently when they need them, and really working on reinforcing the Toolbox program within our community. So we did this at all school meetings in addition to over the announcements, and we continue to do this, and this is a practice that we continue to do as we are working on helping our students to learn the different strategies that the Toolbox program provides. In addition, this year we implemented the Calm Classroom techniques, and we continue to have the Calm Classroom techniques were practiced initially in the classrooms, and they were done as part of a morning meeting. And since we are transitioning back to all in person, we are now doing them as part of the announcements, and we are participating in the Calm Classroom activities as whole buildings. We also have our Tier 1 lessons that are happening in the classrooms, and our targeted interventions as determined by a screener as well. Our third goal was to continue to expand and integrate the computer science initiative, as well as focus on collaboration and communication from school to community. And so we held a math night for our students and families last year, in addition to integrating the computer science skills in the content area lessons. We do have, as part of our collaboration and with our school in communication from school to community, our Kindness Club has continued and is led by Mrs. McGrath in first grade, and we are also working with the Kindness Club at the high school. And that has started again and took place after school and last week at Foster North. Last year, we also had our Dave McGillivray Dream Big visit and the YouTube event as well. And we continue to have bike safety, the trick or treat safety programs from our school resource officer. So we are continuing to do some of our similar community projects, but they are being done remotely or in different ways. And we're just adjusting, going through our year, but adjusting as needed to the different modes of communication. And looking at the upcoming school year and the upcoming school improvement plan, we looked at the process this year of, collecting data from our stakeholders, input from our stakeholders, and we really wanted to ensure that we are keeping students at the core of all of our decisions. And so in order to gather input from our stakeholders, we had a staff survey. We also had a family survey that was sent out through our foster family fax. We utilized data. We took a look at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year data from previously as well as this year, in addition to looking at our social emotional screening. We had our school council meetings, and also the staff was involved as well as part of the school improvement plan development. And so moving forward into the upcoming school years, we are fostering an inclusive community, and our goals are to provide inclusive instruction that is focused on critical thinking and inquiry, to consistently use common language and a variety of tools for students to increase our social emotional development, to increase the depth of understanding and use of restorative justice practices, and to generate a strong sense of community through shared goals, common language, and clear communication. We really wanted to take a look at moving into next year and focus back on really what we are doing and ensuring that what we are doing, we're doing it well. And so our goals are related. We tried to relate our goals, and as the work is completed in the different areas, we're really refining what we do and taking a close look at what's in place and what small changes do we need to do in order to enhance the work that's being done. So for our first goal, to provide inclusive instruction that is focused on critical thinking and inquiry, we really want to assess what is currently in place, because there are a lot of great things happening already. So what is currently in place, and creating common understanding, a common understanding among staff to ensure that we're all moving in the same direction. Also taking a look at our scheduling, collaboration practices, and our reflective practice. We want to maximize our student engagement and continue time on learning as we come into this school year, and be very reflective. What do we want to take away from this past year that really worked well? What do we want to continue that has always worked well? And what should we potentially stop doing now that we have some new ways to potentially instruct our students, and what works better, potentially what could work better? So really being reflective, thinking about the process that we use and what we are doing, and then how do we move forward, really enhancing our instruction. Our second goal is to consistently use common language and a variety of tools for students to use to increase social emotional development. So really looking at an organized plan for this, making sure that it is all connected in the classroom, all school meetings, the announcements, so that what we're focusing on is really surrounding our community, and it's integrated in all different areas of the day for our students. And also we want to ensure that the professional development, we are working with our new staff. So through our mentors, and as they go throughout the year, that they also have that same information with the programs that we currently have in place. So really looking at what do we do and how do we do it well, and continue to do it well with our current staff as well as our new staff, and ensuring that everybody has that information. And also communication to families. We have our toolbox program in place, but for our new kindergarten families, they perhaps don't know about our kindergarten they don't know about our toolbox program. So really looking at how do we use our curriculum nights, how do we use, our PTO has been phenomenal at having guest speakers come to their meetings, and so really using different forums in order to communicate with families, in addition to our typical communication with the foster family fax, as well as emails as well. Our next goal is increasing the depth of understanding and use of restorative justice practices. So again, looking at professional development, modeling, and practicing with students. So having the students, perhaps in our student council, model at all school meetings, and really keeping it student focused and focusing on the relationships. We want to ensure that we're empowering our students, and that we have our student council that is really starting to take place within the building, and having them be the leaders of the building and modeling for our younger students. We want to create the community and use the common language, so we're all, again, using that common language and integrating that our practices across the different, whether it's within the classroom, whether it's on the playground, if it's in the cafeteria, that all of our students are using the same language or the same process of how to solve a problem, and really wrapping that around the whole school community and the students' day. Our last goal is to generate a strong sense of community through shared goals, common language, and clear communication. And this is focusing on community, but also how do we create community? What is our community focused on? So the consistent focus on inclusive instruction, the social emotional practices, and restorative justice. Student council are using our student council leaders. We also have STAR students, which was implemented this year. So our students are safe, they try their best, they're always kind, and they are respectful. And this is something that we reiterate with our students every day. If we're having conversations with our students, we can ask questions about, and so that our students are reflective and ensuring that we're reminding students about what are our values and how do we communicate this, really thinking about how are we communicating what we are doing. So through our foster family facts, ensuring that we're communicating what is happening in the building and what language we're using with our families. We're also looking at our focus on Inclusive Schools Week and having some projects with Inclusive Schools Week, as well as read across diverse sections of America and taking a look at what resources do we have available, what resources should we be looking into that really will help us participate in the read across diverse sections of America as well. And then our last slide is just sharing some of what we are doing at Foster. And so as part of it, we have our students who are participating in some of our computer science initiatives through the math night, as well as students in 5th grade who are working with a guest. This is previously. This is Curiosity Club in the middle, and they're working on a question that the students had wanted to know the answer to. So it's very choice-based. The students have the choice as to what they want to research, and they work with a family member, and the family member comes in, and it's a great day in 5th grade where they're all researching and reading and talking and discussing and asking questions. And we also have our Kindness Club, which is meeting. And then we also have some pictures of how we are at Foster North, as well as in our cafeteria. And so I will stop sharing to take any questions.
Thank you very much. And I want to compliment you on your report too, because it was very good to read. And I again, appreciated the measurable benchmarks and very clear outline of how you were going to get there. And also, the strong sense of community. I noticed that goal. And if this year has taught us anything, it's how important that is. So I think that's a great thing to focus on.
Thank you. That really came from our, when we had taken I'm sorry. Well, that came from input from our stakeholders. So that came from the community and really from our parents and as well as our staff of really looking at how do we move forward. Mm-hmm. And so that came from the different surveys that we had taken as to what do we really want to focus on and make our priorities, because all of these different steps are great steps to move forward, but really what do we want to make as our priority for next year?
Mm-hmm. That's a great one. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Michelle?
I do. Thank you. Thank you, Beth. That was a really fantastic presentation. And I would like to commend you and Melissa as well, because I love this. There were things that were new this year that worked well, and let's not forget about them, right? Because if that's, we got to take something good out of this whole past 16 months. So I commend you all for focusing on that. And I think I was struck when I was listening to your presentation that I think something that we sometimes forget about in Hingham is that it is such a large district, right? And we have so many students compared to our towns, our surrounding towns. And while each elementary school, shares the same goals and results-oriented actions, every school community just has those special things about it that make it unique. And that's such a blessing for this district to have, that we do have those neighborhood schools that, again, everybody shares the same goals, but everybody just gets to it a little bit differently. And I think that's what really makes the the town unique. And I think it is what makes our middle school and our high school that much more robust when those kids all come together and have those, different but shared experiences. So thanks for all that you're doing to keep things, fresh and unique at your school for the students and their families.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments on the committee? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone in the audience. You can use the raise hand function if you do. Okay, not seeing any. Well, Dr. Wilcox, thank you again for your presentation and for everything you did this year.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate it. So, okay, next we're moving back to 9.1, which is to appoint a school committee member to the Climate Action Committee. This is the committee that was created at town meeting this year. And I want to thank Carlos De Silva for stepping up to serve on that. So we're going to appoint Carlos to do that.
Thank you for the appointment.
Great. Next is 9.2 to discuss strategic planning. As many people know, that's a big goal for the committee now and in the next year to develop a multi-year strategic plan for the school district. And Dr. Austin's been doing some research and has a presentation for us.
Thank you. Before I start that, I want to say that, we're very excited in the central office to get started on some projects that are really meaningful. The last 16 months have given us many challenges. And I think I share the same excitement to move forward, even though we're very focused on the last 15 days of school this year and ending on a very positive note. There is much work to be done. And I want to thank the folks in our office, particularly Dr. LeBillois, that presented us some information before he went on vacation as well. He's got a lot of experience in strategic planning. I know teaches that, and so we'll certainly look to him as we continue our future growth. And we're very fortunate to have such a talented group in our office and dedicated to all the work we're doing. So start with that. And if I could say one thing before I start on this, because I didn't hit the button fast enough when Carly Kennedy was leaving for the day, but just wanted to do, and I know she's probably not on here any longer, but to say thank you to her as well. I didn't get in there fast enough to do that before she exited. And since this is the last school committee meeting before we graduate our seniors, I want to wish all of our seniors the very best. I'm very proud of their perseverance this year, and I'm so glad that we're able to bring back towards the end of the year a fairly normal, or as normal as we can be in the end of COVID, graduation and end the year on such a positive note. So I wish them all well. And anyway, we'll go on with strategic planning. And again, this is a fairly brief, we just obviously passed this through the school budget. So we're just beginning to think about this and provide you with this slideshow. So the first thing we are is was think about this. The voters approved, thankfully, a $50,000 in the FY22 operating budget that's dedicated to strategic planning. We're very excited for that and to get moving. We know this is going to be incredibly important as we consider the budget again for FY23, and of course what our future looks like Hingham Public Schools. The purpose of strategic planning is to set our overall district goals for the next 5 years and develop a plan of action to achieve those goals during that time. So the strategic planning model, what we hope to utilize is a DESE framework, which is the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education Planning Success Model. And again, this is a framework. I want to say that, our intent is to use the framework, but then to be very unique to the needs of Hingham and to be able to utilize multiple perspectives and very inclusive process. But I believe with the DESE model, the planning for success is an inclusive model, which is very important. We want to include everyone. Hands-on planning process designed to build district and school capacity and coherence while also building community understanding and support. So this is number one, that it has to be an inclusive model, that we get lots of input from all aspects of the town about the district and where we want to go in the future. It is hopefully a multi-year improvement plan that includes the adoption of an annual action plan for implementation that is measurable, and I can report upon that every year. The planning for success model is a flexible process that can be easily customized to the unique needs of our school district. And as I mentioned, we have a lot of talent within our office itself and different perspectives, and we want to utilize that. We want to be flexible. This is a partnership with the other administrators. We have many talented principals and directors who really are invested in doing strategic planning and excited about it. So we will be flexible and we will customize that is appropriate to Hingham. Planning for Success was developed by DESE in 2013, has been refined based on the feedback from districts at all levels. The Planning for Success has been successfully used in districts at all levels of student achievement and growth. And PFS provides districts with a variety of tools, protocols, and facilitation tips that will support community engagement in each of the 3 Planning for Success phases. So the 3 planning phases that we hope to follow as a framework, one is the creation of plan. That's analyzing our performance data, our education evaluation system, and community feedback data for trends and patterns, identifying root causes. Dr. LaBillois gave me a great book called 21 Trends. I recommend you read it. It's a great resource, and I look forward to some time where I can read that in depth. We are creating a plan to envision the future, as well as backward design the improvement strategy from desired student outcomes and researching effective practices. Phase 2 is to align our systems, which is connecting our education evaluation goals to the plan, to our plan, connect the school improvement plans, as you've heard 2 of them tonight, to our district plan overall, leverage our budget, grants, and resources in support of the plan, which is going to be very important as we look to the FY23 budget and beyond, and of course, build community commitment to the plan that we decide upon. And phase 3 is our implementation, which is to create the annual action plan with progress and impact benchmarks, to monitor and publicly report on progress, and to redesign the plan as necessary or as conditions change. So the next steps. We'll be looking to contract with a plan facilitator or a trained Planning for Success facilitator that can help us with the process. We did have a discussion within our office, and it's important that we participate in the process. We need to use a facilitator to help us along the way, but this will be a partnership with a facilitator, not a facilitator doing the work for us. So that was very important. I will work with the facilitator in June and July to plan our process, as well as work with our central office administration and our other administrators. I'm going to propose a strategic planning team. And again, this is an outline. It can change a little bit. It's a very large team. As you can see, we're trying to incorporate many people in this, but it would include central office administrators, school committee members, principals, academic directors, teachers, a Hingham Education Association leadership member, technology director, parents, at least one from every level, students, hopefully one from the middle school and the high school, town officials such as a town administrator or some other representative of the town, and perhaps a local business owner, a citizen in the community that would be part of this overall strategic planning team. We'll also organize an updated administrative leadership team, which is what I consider 17 members, which is the central office administrators, the 6 principals, and the 6 academic directors to do some work on the academic plan as well. And then for the summer, I will work with central office and our administrators to set and organize a planning team meeting in August. So a sample planning for success timeline. We also know that, with a budget season coming up that we will get into in January, it's important for us to move fairly quickly. And so therefore, this is a sample timeline that we would begin to think about. Planning team retreat 1 would be our large team meeting where we talk about visioning for the district and discuss community engagement strategy, which would occur in August. Then the administrative leadership team would look at our SWOT analysis of strengths, weaknesses, opposition, and threats analysis, as well as our district data. We'd begin to look at that in August. The planning team members would begin to conduct visioning sessions in September. That would be 3 to 4 weeks, as well as collecting data from the community. Planning team retreat 2, which probably would be in October, where we would synthesize our common vision themes, data collection and review. Again, in October, looking at our third planning team retreat for data and root cause analysis, draft strategic objectives, and draft strategic initiatives. The admin leadership strategy retreat 2 would have strategic objectives, strategic initiatives, and intended outcomes, and develop drafts of those, hopefully again in October, November. And then our planning team retreat 4, which is when we would have the vision statement, quality plan review and revisions, and community dissemination process, hopefully by the end of December. So it's an aggressive timeline, but one that we wanted to set, or I wanted to set now, to try to set the stage for the work ahead. So I thank you for your support and just kind of this brief overview of thinking of strategic planning and getting moving in the process. Certainly we'll take your questions.
Great, thank you. And I'm very excited about doing this. It's nice to start thinking about the future and what we want our school system to look like, rather than just reacting to a pandemic, which we've been doing this year. So it's very exciting. And I think the timeline is perfect because that will land us right in time for the budget season, which is going to be important. Does anyone on the committee have questions? Carlos?
Dr. Austin, as you are looking into do this strategic planning, I would recommend also that the committee take a look at it on the job that was done by this school committee. Liza led us through a great exercise putting together a strategic planning that addresses a lot of the issues. So I know that perhaps you can take advantage of that. Just a recommendation.
Really, thank you.
Anyone else have any comments or questions? Liza?
Yeah, to add to Carlos, I'm assuming, Paul, you're going to gather all the documentation we've done the last couple of years with the superintendent search. We had some visioning work that we did and outreach with the community, and then we did that 5-year financial vision 4 years ago. So we're coming up on that 5th year. So I assume you would use that information to pull into the group and build off of that.
Yep, of course.
Yep. Thank you.
Jen?
Just one quick question about the community members. How will you be picking those, Dr. Austin? How will it be an application process for that?
I've not gotten that far yet.
Okay.
I've not gotten that far yet.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would say, but I think it sounds great and I'm excited that we're starting to do it. And I know you're on board with that. The community engagement is going to be key here. I think about all the information we got from the community as we did the superintendent search a few years ago. And so I think just being mindful of that as we go forward with those groups. And I also think it would be good to involve, and you mentioned a town official, but our partners on the municipal side too, the Board of Selectmen and Advisory Committee, and I'm sure they're partly part of the equation, but we need to make sure we loop them in as we go forward too.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying, and certainly has been a theme that's been pushed in our office, and when Dr. LaBille obviously gave us some other information earlier on this year, but that being inclusive is incredibly important in this process. We want to make it a wide-ranging scope of people that we're talking to, getting information from, data about, and looking at perspectives in multiple ways. And so I really want to say that even though I gave you a DESE outline or a plan for success outline, it really needs to be customized to us and to make sure that we get all of those groups involved in the process. And again, we all look forward to that process and getting it moving in the right direction. And I just wanted to give somewhat of a framework tonight to let you know we're on board and we're moving forward, even though we're trying to focus on closing out the year. But reality is we have to move forward with this as well.
Agreed. Well, that's great. And I just look at, the master plan work that was done this year too. And I think we're in good shape moving forward. So thank you for that. Does anyone in the audience have any questions about?
You got Ness was asking a question.
Sorry, Ness.
It's okay. It was a last minute thought. I appreciate that you have 3 parents that you are looking at, one at each level. I'm wondering if we can add in a Met-Go parent.
We can certainly look at that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not, again, I gave you that framework and that certainly can be adjusted up or down. We want to include all of the areas that we really need to have this strategic plan move forward and make sure we have representation.
Great. Okay, well, thank you very much. That's great. And yeah, keep us informed and let us know how we can help, because
we'll be continuing to talk about this quite regularly, and I appreciate all of our folks. I know there's a lot on the plate, but I think there can be some excitement in doing strategic planning, and it is a big task, and we're ready to go, or we will be.
Great. Okay. All right, so the next item on the agenda is 9.3, discussion of the proposal to revise the subcommittees of the Hingham School Committee and act as appropriate. If it's okay, does anyone have an objection with also looping in 9.9, which is to consider proposed policy CLA first read? We kind of discussed this in policy. Does anyone have an objection to that? No? Okay, great. So this was... since we're starting a new cycle after the election, it seemed like a good time to take a fresh look at our subcommittees. The policy subcommittee met to discuss a policy to organize all the reports that the school committee receives. So we have them all listed in one place. And that's the policy CLA that's in your packets. And since this impacts the subcommittees, we thought it'd be good to consider them together. As you know, a great deal of the work that our committee does takes place in the subcommittee. So it seems like a way to make sure that we're working as efficiently as possible. That was the goal with this. So if we do change the subcommittees tonight, the full committee needs to vote on that. So hopefully we can do that. And there's a proposed list in your packets. For the CLA policy, this is just a first read, so we can keep discussing it. But I'll give a quick overview of what we're proposing, and Liza, jump in if you have anything to add as we go. The first thing we were talking about doing was eliminating the community outreach subcommittee, and to put most of those responsibilities, such as communication, coffees with the superintendent, et cetera, is the responsibility of the executive board. The thinking behind that was that the chair is the spokesperson of the school committee anyway, and it makes more sense to concentrate it with that one group rather than have a separate committee that has to go through the chair. And this is also partially based on some feedback from Libby, who has been the community outreach chair for the past 2 years, and she said it was a little cumbersome to be doing both. So the website responsibilities can either be taken up by the executive committee or curriculum, or there may not be as much this year since a communications person or partial communications person was in the budget. So we can talk about what makes sense for that, but that was the first proposal. We also are proposing to consolidate finance and capital and facilities into one subcommittee. The thinking behind that is that it's one budget, so it makes sense to look at it as a whole instead of in parts, especially as we work to move technology from capital into operations. It also seems like a better use of John Ferris's time, so he can attend meetings for one subcommittee instead of 2. We're proposing to keep policy, salary negotiations, and special education as is. And then we are proposing to add a curriculum subcommittee. This group would not be making curriculum recommendations because that's not the role of the school committee. We would be overseeing school committee interests in the curriculum, primarily budget as it relates to budget and policy. This group would also do the deep dives into the department reports and report back to the full committee. And additionally, as community outreach was previously charged with assisting with the approval process for non-public schools in Hingham, the curriculum subcommittee looks like that would be the appropriate group to take over. As just to note, because their question came up about that, one of the new policies that we adopted at our last meeting changed the policy. So it used to be that community outreach had to approve or be involved in the approval of new schools, but now it can be any group. We can develop our own procedures to do that. So we can do this without changing the policy yet again. We're also proposing to add a wellness subcommittee, and this committee would oversee school committee interest in the development of a district wellness plan, which we're legally required to do and seems like a good idea. And it would also oversee the school committee interests in all of the district wellness concerns, including athletics and social emotional work. So as far as the policy, as I mentioned earlier, the purpose of it is to consolidate all of the administrative reports and presentations that the school committee hears so that nothing slips through the cracks as committee members or personnel turnover throughout the years. So the grid that's in your packets lists all of the reports the committee normally hears, a general time of year, and what committee, subcommittee, or full committee hears the reports. And hopefully I can ask Liza to maybe walk through the reports. But we were thinking about talking about those together. So if people are good with changing up the subcommittees, then we can also see what we were thinking as far as what the responsibilities of those groups would be. So I don't know, Liza, if you want to talk about the CLA.
Yeah. So this schedule of reports, we actually, Carrie and I both saw it on the MASC listserv separately, and then so it was from another district had shared it, and we actually thought it was a good idea to, just to get the list of all the different reports down in one document. And then some of these reports we noticed that the other districts were doing, and that we were getting bits and pieces of information, but we weren't consolidating it into one place. And so as we went through the list, we really were. It gave us a chance to organize ourselves. And so, like the first one, the annual report / warrant message, that's the annual report is the book you get at town meeting, and then the warrant message. And we know we have to do that, but it always seems to catch up to us right in the middle of the budget season. So it was good to get this on the list. And then like with the athletic department report, that came from, we know we've been hearing from Jim Quattromoni, and then we would get that traditionally every 4 years, like the department meetings. Attendance report, that was something that the other districts had on their lists that we didn't necessarily have, but we knew that, occasionally we hear there's challenges with attendance in the elementary schools on Friday afternoons and ski season. And so that would be good information for us to have. So some of these lists, we went through the different reports, and there's what we were already doing, and then some other suggestions from other districts. And then Carrie and I went through it with Paul, and we consolidated things together. And then once we made the list, then we were talking about the subcommittees, and we realized, it'd be good for the subcommittees when they do the deep dives, then how do we assign these different reports to the different subcommittees? And so that led to our discussion of some of the reorganization work as well. So I think just looking at, and also some of these reports would be, they don't all have to be half-hour, 45-minute reports to the school committee. They can be, consolidated together, and, just facts, like a one-slide PowerPoint type of thing, one handout. These are not intended to be long, dissertation documents.
Right.
So just wanted to clarify that as well.
And the language in the policy makes that clear too. It's not telling anyone how to present anything. It's more just capturing it in one place. So
yeah.
So does anyone have any thoughts? Anyone have any thoughts first on the proposed subcommittees? Carlos?
One subcommittee that I thought we would see here, and I don't, and I forgot to mention to you beforehand, so I apologize, is Diversity and Inclusion Subcommittee. It's a committee actually that many school committees are adopted throughout the state. Since, diversity and inclusion is something that will be, we are discussing, and, Jamie with his team is developing the program, I believe would be a great subcommittee to also implement with school committee members. Although we already have one member as part of the program, would be an official subcommittee. Because I'm talking about this topic, and I had not said anything earlier, I just wanted to once again take advantage and welcome Team Dempsey to the school committee, recognizing that a few years back, Liza made the point of highlighting how women became the majority on the school committee. Something that is wonderful, and tonight we are making history by perhaps having, for the first time, 3 women officers. Congratulations. And I broke some barrier in 2016 when I was elected, becoming not only the first person of color in Hingham elected to public office here, but also as the first Brazilian American in the whole United States of America. And tonight, Team Dempsey helped us break another barrier by being the first LGBTQ joining this school committee. Perhaps, I haven't heard of anybody else. So I want to welcome you. And in light of talking about diversity, and because it is a topic, hot issue, I would appreciate if we could please consider introduce and also the subcommittee on diversity and inclusion.
So I would like to hear from other people on the committee about what they think about that. I will say that when we discussed it in policy, we kind of came down against it right now, not because it's not important, because it clearly is. It's a huge priority for the district, but because the equity work there's still so much to do to kind of focus it on as far as what it is. But I'd be open to hear, I don't know how other people feel about it.
Yeah, I had also suggested that equity fall under wellness as just because, yeah, I agree with Kerry that we have the work going on and the research going on. So Carlos, I appreciate you bringing it up. And I personally was thinking about it and was trying to figure out how to fit it in without creating too many subcommittees. Yeah. So having the issue addressed by a subcommittee, but then we have it on the reports, we actually have equity initiative as a full school committee responsibility and having quarterly reports. Now, I'm thinking the equity initiative is covering our work and grounding us with diversity and inclusion and getting us going on it. But maybe people have different interpretations of that kind of work.
Yeah, I could see curriculum having a role in that as well, and special education.
And special education.
It kind of goes across a number of subcommittees, but I don't know. Michelle, did you have something?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well, because it sort of seems like it's one of those. I mean, it has a place in finance and capital as well, right? Like it's one of those things that it's sort of the underlying principle in every one of the subcommittees already. And maybe, I don't know, that's sort of what I was thinking. I feel like I'm just trying to figure out what would be the work of that committee, since the district operationally is already working with the equity task force. We, in each one of these subcommittees is, that DEI should be driving each subcommittee's work. I'm just not sure, I'm just trying to picture what would that work be that subcommittee was doing?
I actually would ask respectfully the same thing about wellness. I mean, wellness on itself doesn't speak to everything, right? So would you do wellness equity, wellness diversity?
So wellness, we have to have a district-wide wellness plan, and we don't. So that would be one of the responsibilities of it. But as we talked through it, it has a role with probably equity and inclusion, with athletics. That would be a good place for that to live. the social emotional work that's happening in the district? I mean, Carlos, what do you see that committee doing?
I didn't do much research on it, but specifically, I mean, one thing I've been talking about for quite a while, and I haven't seen it happen, is diversity training. We need to implement the diversity training as part of orientation. Every single public servant in Hingham should go through a diversity training, truly understand what diversity really means. And I haven't seen that happen yet. I've been talking about this for the last 5 years. That's one of the things that the committee could do it. Individuals that's part of it could volunteer to be part of, presenting with HR, perhaps. But I don't want to be making any suggestions right now without, the work being done behind the scenes. But, one of the things is to ensure, truly, that we are looking into bring more diversity into part of the staff. What's happened here, obviously, at the school committee, we are elected, we are volunteers, we actually step up and run. But it would be awesome to sort of be out there and encouraging more participation for individuals on diversity of diversity background. And I understand that the equity team will be addressing a lot of this, but I know that many of the school committees out there are adopting. I just didn't take the time to, to see exactly what they envision doing. But I would be, glad to look at it and, perhaps, bring it forward.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to do some research and come back, we could add one if we feel like it's necessary. But I would just say, to your point about if you look through the packet tonight and the list of presentations that is on for CLA, one of them is the professional development. And so that sort of seems like what you're talking about would fall in that line. So Tim, did you have something to add?
I just had a question about whether work done on a school committee, subcommittee for diversity and inclusion and equity, whether that would be across purposes with the equity task force that Dr. LaBille was. And I don't know if that would, if part of the task force would even say, in a year, this should be a school committee.
That's kind of what we were sort of thinking, but Ness, did you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that I think about it is the task force is currently doing the audit work, and it's diving into all the data and then coming up with the plan. I can envision that if we propose we need a DEI director going forward, that a subcommittee then forms at that moment to work with the DEI director. But I think that would all come at the end of when the plan is presented. And to your point, Carlos, the diversity training, all of that will be rolled out with the plan that gets rolled out in the coming year. So next year that's being planned. And I don't know if you want to add anything, Dr. Jamie.
Yeah, I think what we learned through our consultant work and through the work that we've been doing with the Equity Task Force is that the base diversity training is a part of it, but also it's sort of understanding implicit bias, understanding systems of racism, understanding how we as members of functioning society contribute to these systems. And I think that when we talk about sort of welcoming new staff, the training, the new teacher orientation, that's really under the induction and mentoring committee, which has its own co-directors, and there's building-based support to bring in our new teachers. That is one of the pieces that we're looking at, particularly relative to hiring people of diversity and diverse backgrounds to come to Hingham. What we have learned is sort of in the process of the work that's ongoing right now with the equity team is understanding why we cannot attract and retain more diverse educators in the system. And there are some sort of deeper rooted issues there that we're trying to, so in June, I will be in partnership with the equity team sort of releasing the first year plan. The first set of data we're doing sort of a deep dive. You've seen the audit document before. There's 18 to 20 areas that we're looking at. For year one, we're looking at sort of 6 to 7 areas in quite in depth and doing a deep dive that will then sort of roll out year one programming and implementation through professional development, our partnership with Suffolk University and restorative practices and restorative justice, resetting our handbook and the way that we approach discipline and to be more supportive. I think that part of it, it will be operational, but I think in the long term, as diversity, equity, inclusion becomes an ingrained part of who we are as a culture, I don't know that we'll necessarily need a standing subcommittee, because it should be, to Michelle's point, embedded across all the work that we do. That one of the lenses the policy team should have is on using the frame of how does this policy impact all of our learners, all of our employees, all members of our community. Now, to Carlos's point, it may make sense as well as we bring on a potential director of equity and inclusion, sort of working from a policy point of view, right? Like looking at sort of the issues that are that person is facing, the issues that are ongoing in the district, but it also could be also managed through the policy work. So I mean, I think to the policy subcommittee's work on re-envisioning the subcommittees, it may be worth sort of seeing how it rolls out, seeing how it plays out, and then sort of doing a needs assessment about a year from now as you roll out all these new committees to sort of see, are they really doing what we need them to do? To Carrie's point, the district is about, as Dr. Venice and I know well, we are about to undergo another coordinated program review with the Department of Education. And one of the major areas that the state will be looking at with us is through curriculum and through diversity and equity and inclusion as represented in our curriculum material. So there will be a need to do a formal audit that I could see working with that curriculum subcommittee on with equity lens. But Carlos, you're right relative to the training. We did roll out the first round of implicit bias training with the faculty back in March. COVID did throw a bit of a wrench in that, but you will see in next year's professional development program a really strong theme of diversity, equity, and inclusion for all of our educators. Hope that's helpful just to clarify some of the work that's going on.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, that is helpful. All right, so does anyone want to make a motion, or how are people feeling about, oh, Jen, did you have something?
I just wanted to just mention that as someone who was on the finance subcommittee and the capital facilities, I was on both of them, and I think it's a really great idea that we're combining the two. And I also just want to mention that the schedule of reports, it's a really great idea. I really like it. And I just want to thank Liza and you for bringing it forward.
Yep, credit to Liza for pushing it forward. So would anyone like to make a motion? Let's see. I guess we're looking for, sorry, Michelle?
I can make it, I think. I won't read them all, but I would make a motion to accept the proposed school committee, subcommittee, and liaison assignments as proposed for the 2021-2022 school year. Does that work?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ness. Roll call vote, Michelle?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
Carlos?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Liza? Aye. And I'm an aye as well. Okay, so we have new subcommittees. And then as far as the CLA policy goes, does anyone have any other thoughts on that? We don't have to rush with this, but just if anyone has any initial thoughts.
Yeah, we also, just to, I can add, we want to make sure that the leadership and the administrative team looks at the list, and if we're missing anything, or if they have questions about what we came up with, that we get their input as well. And then we can figure out when they all happen.
Mm-hmm.
That we didn't get that far yet.
Yeah, and we can be, general with that too, and come up with dates every year. But I think it'll be good to help have it all in one place. All right, so now that we have all these new subcommittees, now we have to staff them. So, and as well as the various liaison positions. So the list of the subcommittees and liaisons are in the packet. So if you could just shoot me an email by June 1st and list the subcommittees and liaison responsibilities in the order in which you'd like to serve on them. And if there's something that you don't want to be on, just leave that off. That's totally fine. Just as a reminder, if you're looking to be a liaison, avoid any schools where you have a child attending. That's what we've done. And then I will also add the climate committee as Carlos on there. And then I left off equity, and I'll put Ness on there as well. So if you could do that by June 1st, that would be great. And we can do the appointments at the next meeting. All right. So next is the meeting schedule. And we have, Dr. Austin, we have those scheduled. through August. Were you proposing to take one off for each month?
Thank you. I was looking at your input for that. If people felt like they needed to meet twice, I certainly can, do whatever you'd like to do. I thought that given the busy schedules and the year that we've had, perhaps having one meeting and then using a second one if we needed to would be a good model, but that's really up to you of what you were thinking.
Okay. Does anyone have any strong feelings on it? No.
Could I just add that could we, if the governor ends the state of emergency, and I'm not sure who's responsible for the remote meeting access, but because I've heard that it might be up to the legislature to approve, to suggest something. I'm not sure where the open meeting law thing is going. If they disband it, could we as a committee reach out to the select board and request the allowance of our town participating in remote meetings, even if it's by like conference call and you're not allowed to vote or something like that. Just because I realize looking at the schedule, I have a couple of things that have come up that I'm not going to be here over the summer, but that if we have a lot going on and who knows what the return to school thing might be, that even if we can still remote in, I think that would be helpful. But just if it goes away by the governor, our town, in the past, each town had to approve whether to do remote meetings or not. And our previous year's Board of Selectmen, when the decision was made, did not allow for it. So I think we should ask.
I'm hearing that the legislature is looking at it, which would be great, because I agree. I think remote participation would be really helpful for our committee, but also for the public. That's been a really valuable thing this year. So yeah, I think that's a great idea to ask them to do that.
I would not oppose to have one meeting in June and one meeting in July, since we are meeting tonight. And our next meeting is scheduled for June 7th, I believe. And the restriction would be lifted on the 15th, correct?
Yep.
So the next meeting, if we skip June 7th, we'll meet on the 21st.
So I think we should meet on the 7th just because we need to assign the subcommittees, and there's a lot of work for them to do.
And I was recommending July and August and meeting on
July and August, okay.
Yeah.
All right, now, so I was going to also propose that we meet in person. 7th is still a little too early to meet in person, correct?
We can see. I think we'll see. I agree. I think the sooner we can do that, the better. But
we are prepared for the 21st, Carrie. We are prepared for that meeting on the 21st to be in person.
Great. Okay. I mean, I think maybe we leave the calendar as is, and we can cancel meetings too, but at least we have them there if we need it, because we just don't know what's going to happen over the summer. So is that okay with everyone? Okay.
Canceling meetings is very okay.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so next is to discuss Juneteenth as a holiday for certain groups and act as appropriate. John, is this you?
Sure, I can speak to that. So the Juneteenth, as we all know, was declared a holiday by the state of Massachusetts. Recently, we just had the benefit of attending a seminar from Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, and Lehane, and they sort of gave us what the regs are on it and how it's actually coming out. In that you have a few slides. Those were from Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, and Lehane. But what it does say is, like, for public employees, Juneteenth, which is really June 19th, right? So, and for public employees, public buildings must be closed on Juneteenth. And that's in Massachusetts. Massachusetts laws are, but unlike federal holidays, when state holidays fall on a Saturday, that day would typically be will fall on a Saturday. It doesn't default to a Friday. However, when it falls on a Sunday, the rule is that we do end up having the holiday on the Monday. The building has to close on the Monday. So typically in a school system, school buildings are not open on Saturdays anyways. So, you know, if Juneteenth falls on a Saturday, it should just be celebrated on the Saturday. And I'm not recommending any day off for a Saturday holiday, but if it does fall on a Sunday, we would have to close the building according to mass regs for that Monday. In which case, you know, then we have bargaining agreements, specifically the custodians agreement, and then also we have the administrative assistance guidelines and stuff where holidays are specifically called out and they're identified as to whether they're holidays or not. And we have situations in that administrative assistance guidelines where there's school year employees and there's full year employees. From an administrator standpoint, when you have to close the building on the Monday, the administrators have a holiday. That's all there is to it. It's a paid holiday because no one's going to get dinged a paid day because it's not a holiday, because you're not working or because you're forced to close the building. So salaries would just stay constant. So the issue in this case really has to do with from a school committee action is declaring it at a holiday, and you know what type of holiday it will be for, you know, say custodians and for administrative assistants. So, you know, my recommendation really is if there's a couple of conditions. One is if it falls on a Saturday, we just celebrate it on a Saturday and there's no day off. However, if it follows on a Monday, then I think that it should be, on a Sunday, then the Monday should be a day off, and it should be a day for pay for custodians and for also administrative assistants that are all year long, and possibly administrative assistants that are not school year, provided the school year ends after the 19th. So we're getting into a little tricky gray area here, right? So for an example, Christmas Eve is a holiday for custodians and administrative assistants, but only if it falls on a school day and school is not in session. So basically, if Christmas Eve falls on a Saturday, then we don't have that Friday off because the kids will, in fact, most likely go, and school committee can decide that calendar year to year anyhow, might most likely go to school on that Friday the 23rd and Saturday the 24th. So there's no holiday. But if the 24th fell on a Friday, in all likelihood, the kids are not going to school on that Friday, and we're breaking on Thursday. So then that Friday actually does become a holiday. So I'm recommending sort of similar action for Juneteenth to be handled in that manner, specifically for those groups.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions or comments on that? Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion?
And I worded the motion in the email that's there. It's like, I'm not sure if it's, you know, it's conceptually, that's what we'll do with these guidelines, right? It's like a little wordy, but
yeah, it works.
If someone could better phrase it, I'm fine with that, but you know what the intent is here.
Yep. I will take a motion that Juneteenth will be a holiday for administrators, custodians, and full year administrative assistants unless it falls on a Saturday. And that school year administrative assistants employees will also be eligible for Juneteenth unless it falls on a Saturday, and further provided the school year ends after Juneteenth.
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And we'll go roll call. Michelle?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
Carlos?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Liza?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay, so next is 10 is subcommittee and project reports, and we'll go alphabetical here too. Michelle?
I don't think I don't have any. I feel like we just met. I feel like we just met 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I'm like, I gave the MECO report last time. I gave the special ed subcommittee report, I think, last time. So I don't think I have anything.
We did meet for special ed, I think.
Did I? I know that's what I was thinking in between the last two meetings.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Then we did. Then we did have a special ed. No, we did have a special ed subcommittee meeting. That'll be our last one for the last committee. We'll probably maybe do one late in the summer, and the topics primarily were the recently approved budget. Thanks again to the townspeople of Hingham for approving that, and Dr. Vinnis's work that she has already begun on filling the many special ed positions that we have available. We talked about some of the challenges that could come from that, trying to fill all those positions. But I felt like Dr. Vinnis felt confident about it. And we were very, very grateful that we did at least last year bring on an HR director, Susan D'Amato, because with this new budget that we have, there's going to be a lot of new hires for Susan to take on and on board. So that was good timing that we received that Susan joined us last year. And I think that's it, though. I don't have a Metco family update. We had our last coffee. I think we have one more coffee next Wednesday, Paul, with Metco parents.
Yeah, I'm not there yet. So if you tell me that's when it is, that's when it is.
Yes.
Now you do.
Now we do. Yes.
I'd have to look at the schedule.
Right,
Working on it one day at a time.
Thank you. Jen, do you have anything?
I attended the school reopening committee meeting on the 12th, and then our next meeting will be this Wednesday, the 26th. Dr. Austin, as he mentioned a lot of the details, and we reviewed the objectives of the committee as well as the timeline. And then, as we get more guidance as it comes in, such as guidance for lunch, and the committee will continue to discuss, different scenarios for that. And I also attended the Foster School Council meeting on May 12th, where the school improvement plan goals were finalized. And I don't know if Dr. Rogoff is still on the call. I just want to thank her for her presentation tonight. I'm very happy, pleased with it, and the multi-year improvement action plan, and feel it really represents the vision and the values of the foster community. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Ness?
The only thing I have is that there's signed warrants in your packet for what I recently signed.
Okay, thank you. Carlos?
I attended the SNAP event at the cemetery, putting flags out, in honor of the veterans. It was a great event, and SNAP have a cocktail night happening on June 11th at the South Shore Country Club. I'd like to remind everyone. And also, SNAP will be participating again in distributing for a small fee the 5th flag. So if anyone is interested in having 5th flags in front of their homes, that helps raise some funds just so SNAP can continue helping our students. And that's that, and I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Carlos. Tim, I'm assuming you don't have anything yet, but I didn't know. Okay.
Very soon.
Yeah, I know. Liza.
Just salary negotiations. We'll be meeting Wednesday for our second meeting with the food service workers. And May 17th, I was at the middle school council, their last meeting. And that's it.
Great. Policy met, and we talked about most of that. I did want to mention that there's a new fields policy that's being proposed for the town. And Mark Thorell had reached out, so I will circle back with him, and that'll go through the policy subcommittee and then to us probably sooner rather than later. So that's just coming. Other items as may not reasonably be known 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Does anyone have anything? No? Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Tim, do you want You want to second that, Tim? Go ahead.
I would love to second that.
Thank you. All right, we'll go alphabetically. Rochelle?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
Carlos?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Liza?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to everyone who stayed on the call.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Night.